You think you want to be Arthur Morgan. You've played the game, sunk hundreds of hours into the digital frontier, and convinced yourself that if you were dropped into 1899, you'd be an outlaw king. You imagine the freedom, the open range, the cool weight of a cattleman revolver on your hip. You picture yourself riding a loyal steed into a sunset that looks like an oil painting, tipping your hat to the ladies and robbing the rich to feed the poor. It's a beautiful fantasy. It's the ultimate escapism. It is a lie. But let's be real for a second. If you, yes, you, the person reading this with soft hands and a spine curved by office chairs, were actually transported to Horseshoe Overlook, you wouldn't last a week. You probably wouldn't last a day. And it wouldn't be a Pinkerton bullet or a grizzly bear that took you out. It would be the world itself. The sheer, crushing, visceral reality of living in a time before comfort was invented. The first thing that would hit you isn't the view. It isn't the majestic sweep of the Dakota River or the towering cliffs of the Heartlands. It's the smell. You wake up, not to an alarm on a smartphone, but to the sound of a camp coughing itself awake. You open your eyes, and the first sensation is a damp, bone-deep chill. Your tent isn't the high-tech, waterproof nylon you buy at REI. It's heavy, mildewed canvas that traps moisture, but somehow lets the cold wind cut right through. You're shivering before you even sit up, and then you inhale. The air in the camp is a physical assault. It's a thick, savoury stew of unwashed bodies, dozens of men and women who haven't seen a bar of soap in weeks, maybe months. It is a biological weapon of an odour. Layered on top of that is the smell of horse manure, fresh and pungent, wafting from the hitching post just 20 yards away. It's not the dry, dusty smell of a stable you might visit on a field trip. It is the wet, ammonia-heavy reek of animal waste that permeates the soil itself. Then there's the wood smoke, which sounds romantic until it's stinging your eyes and coating the inside of your lungs with soot. It clings to everything: your hair, your clothes, your skin. You are smoked like a ham, and underneath it all the faint, sweet-sick scent of rotting meat from the provision wagon where Pearson is hacking up a deer that's been hanging in the sun a little too long. The metallic tang of old blood mixes with the fermentation of the gut pile he hasn't buried yet. You gag. Your modern stomach, accustomed to sanitized, refrigerated air, rebels immediately. The olfactory overload triggers a primal nausea, but you have to move, you have to pee, and this is where the second reality check hits you. The pain. You try to sit up, and your body screams. You haven't been sleeping on a memory foam mattress. You've been sleeping on a cot that is essentially a piece of canvas stretched over a wooden frame, or worse, a bedroll on the hard, uneven earth. Every rock, every root, every slight incline has been digging into your flesh for 8 hours. Your back is locked up, your neck is stiff, your hips feel like they've been bruised with a hammer. You're 25, 30, maybe 40 years old, but in this moment, you feel 80. You groan, rolling off the cot and putting your feet on the ground. The ground is mud. It's always mud. Even if it hasn't rained in days, the camp is a churned-up soup of dirt, spit, tobacco juice, and animal waste. You pull on your boots, stiff, unyielding leather that has already rubbed blisters onto your heels, and stumble out of the tent. The leather is cold and hard, biting into your ankles. There are no gel inserts. There is no arch support. Just flat, dead cow skin against your own. And the sounds. The game gives you a beautiful ambient soundtrack. Reality gives you the cacophony of survival. the hacking cough of a man with consumption, the wet guttural snore of someone sleeping off a drunk, the sharp, sudden scream of a horse kicking a rail, the buzzing. My God, the buzzing, flies the size of grapes, mosquitoes that whine in your ear like tiny drills. It is a constant, low-level auditory torture that never, ever stops. And the day hasn't even started yet. There is no porcelain throne with a flushing mechanism to whisk your waste away to a magical treatment plant. There is a latrine dug on the outskirts of camp. It's a hole in the ground with a wooden plank over it. The smell coming from it makes the camp air seem like a field of lavender. And let's pause on the latrine. In the game, it's a prop. In reality, it is the most dangerous place in the camp. It is a breeding ground for flies, for disease, for misery. The smell is indescribable, a mix of human waste, lime, and rot. You have to squat over a pit that is crawling with maggots. The flies buzz around your face, landing on your lips, your eyes, and you know that these are the same flies that were on the food earlier. The cycle of disease is visible, audible, and smellable. You try to hold your breath, but you can't. You're inhaling the very thing that will likely kill you. And the paper, there is no charm in. You're using a corn cob or a handful of leaves or a page from a Sears catalogue if you're rich. It is a daily humiliation that strips away your dignity one layer at a time. You do your business as quickly as possible, trying not to breathe, trying not to think about the flies buzzing around you, trying not to think about the dysentery that killed more people in the West than bullets ever did. You stumble back to the campfire, desperate for coffee. You need caffeine to jumpstart your brain, to make the headache from the dehydration go away. Pearson pours you a cup from a blackened pot that's been boiling since dawn. You take a sip and you almost spit it out. And the smell of the fire itself isn't the cosy wood smoke scent you buy in a candle. It's acrid. It's burning fat, burning hair and wet wood. It clings to your clothes like a second skin. You smell like a smokehouse. Your eyes water constantly. You're coughing up soot. You can't escape it. It is the perfume of survival, and it smells like cancer. This isn't the smooth roasted Arabica you get at Starbucks. This is cowboy coffee. It's water boiled with crushed beans until it's a thick, bitter sludge. It has the consistency of motor oil and tastes like burnt dirt. The grounds are floating in it, gritty against your teeth. You have to chew your coffee as much as you drink it. It leaves a black residue on your tongue that tastes like charcoal. It scalds your tongue, but you force it down because it's the only warmth you're going to get. There is no sugar. There is no cream. There is just the bitter black reality of 1899. But the coffee is the least of your dietary worries. Let's talk about the food. In the game, Arthur eats a can of peaches or a piece of prime beef, and his cores refill. In reality, your diet would be a slow-motion death sentence. You're eating salted offal. You're eating hardtack that is so dense it can crack a tooth. You're eating beans that have been reheated for 3 days straight. There are no fresh vegetables. There is no vitamin C. Your gums are already starting to bleed when you brush your teeth, if you brush your teeth. And let's talk about the stew. Pearson's stew looks hearty in the game. In reality, it is a biological hazard. It's made from meat that has been hanging in the sun for days. It's full of gristle, bone shards and hair. The vegetables are rotten. The water is from the creek. Every spoonful is a gamble with dysentery. You eat it because you're starving, but your stomach churns with every bite. You can taste the decay. You can taste the lack of refrigeration. And speaking of teeth, Let's take a moment to appreciate the horror of 19th century dentistry. You have a toothache? There is no dentist. There is no Novocaine. There is a pair of rusty pliers and a bottle of whiskey. If you're lucky, the root comes out. If you're not, the tooth shatters, leaving jagged shards of bone in your infected gum. The infection spreads to your jaw, then your blood. Sepsis sets in. You die screaming because you ate too much dried fruit. As the caffeine hits your system, you look around. You see Arthur Morgan walking toward his horse. He looks cool, capable, dangerous. You look down at your own hands. They are shaking. They are soft. You have a hangnail that's starting to get infected because you don't have Neosporin. You have a patch of dry skin on your elbow that's itching like crazy. You realize with a sinking feeling that you are a soft, domesticated animal, dropped into a cage with wolves. And then there are the parasites. You feel an itch on your scalp. You scratch it. It itches again. You realize it's not dry skin, it's lice. They are crawling in your hair, laying eggs at the follicles. You feel another itch in your groin. Crabs. You feel a bite on your ankle. Fleas. You're not just a human being anymore. You are an ecosystem. You are a walking buffet for 1,000 tiny blood-sucking creatures that you cannot escape. There is no medicated shampoo. There is no washing machine to boil your clothes. You just live with the itching. It becomes a constant, maddening background noise to your existence. You decide you need to clean yourself up. You can't stand the feeling of grease in your hair and the grime on your skin. You go to the wash basin. The water is brown and cold. There is a bar of soap that looks like a brick of lye. You splash the freezing water on your face, gasping as it shocks your system. You try to scrub the dirt off, but it's ingrained in your pores now. You're permanently dirty. You will never feel clean again. And the water itself, that brown liquid in the basin, it's not treated. It's scooped from the creek where the horses drink and the deer die. It's teeming with microscopic monsters. Giardia, Cryptosporidium, E. coli. Every sip you take is a gamble. Every time you wash your face, you risk getting a parasite in your eye. You're playing Russian roulette with your own biology every single day. You reach for your razor. In the game, Arthur can grow a beard in a few days and shave it off in seconds with a clean, close cut. In reality, shaving in the wilderness is a blood sport. You have a straight razor that hasn't been properly stropped in weeks. You have no shaving cream, just that harsh lye soap. You hold the blade to your throat, your hand trembling slightly from the cold and the bad coffee. You nick yourself. Of course you do. It stings, sharp and hot. Blood wells up, bright red against the grey dirt on your neck. In 2024, a shaving nick is a minor annoyance. You stick a piece of toilet paper on it and forget about it. In 1899, it's a risk. Infections can happen. Tetanus is real. You dab at it with the cleanest rag you have, hoping your luck holds. You look at your reflection in the small cracked mirror nailed to a tree. You look exhausted. You look pale. You look terrified. The fantasy of the outlaw life is dissolving, replaced by the crushing weight of survival. You aren't thinking about robbing banks. You aren't thinking about becoming a legend. You're thinking about how much your back hurts, how bad you smell, and how much you would kill for a hot shower and a tube of toothpaste. But there is no shower. There is no toothpaste. There is only the camp, the mud, and the horse waiting for you. And before you even get to the horse, you have to get dressed. You think your flannel shirt is uncomfortable? Try wearing 1899 wool. It is heavy. It is scratchy. It smells like wet sheep, even when it's dry, and you don't have a wardrobe of changes. You have one, maybe two outfits. You wear them until they rot off your body. Your underwear, if you're wearing any, is likely a union suit. It's a one-piece cotton trap that collects sweat, dirt and bodily fluids. It bunches up in places you didn't know you had, and there is no elastic. Everything is held up by buttons and suspenders. If a button pops, you are holding your pants up with one hand while trying to shoot a bandit with the other. And the boots. Oh, the boots. They aren't the broken-in designer leather you see on Instagram. They are stiff, unyielding prisons for your feet. They have no ventilation. Your feet sweat in them all day, creating a perfect hot, damp environment for trench foot. By the end of the week, your skin will be white, wrinkled, and peeling off in sheets. The smell when you take them off, if you can take them off, would knock a buzzard off a gut wagon. But getting dressed is just the prelude to the real torture, the grind. In the game, camp chores are a cute little mini-game. You press a button to chop wood, and Arthur splits a log with a satisfying thwack. You carry a sack of grain, and your Deadeye core goes up. It takes 10 seconds. You get a little honour boost. It feels productive. In reality, the chores of 8099 are a crushing, repetitive, back-breaking nightmare that never ends. Let's start with the wood. You don't just chop a log once, you have to fell the tree. Have you ever cut down a tree with an axe? It takes hours. It blisters your hands until they bleed. Your shoulders burn with lactic acid. And once the tree is down, you have to limb it. Then you have to buck it into rounds. Then you have to split it. And you aren't doing this for fun. You are doing it because if you don't, you freeze to death tonight. The wood is heavy. It's full of sap that sticks to your clothes and hair. It's full of ants that crawl up your arms. And you have to do it every single day. There is no thermostat. There is only the pile of wood that is constantly shrinking. And the laundry. In the game, you change clothes at your wardrobe. In reality, washing clothes is a day-long ordeal that destroys your hands. You have to boil water in a massive iron pot. You have to shave lye soap into it. Lye is caustic. It burns your skin. It turns your hands red and raw. You have to scrub the heavy wool and denim against a washboard until your knuckles bleed, and even then they aren't clean. They still smell like smoke and sweat. They are just less dirty. And drying them? If it's raining, you're wearing wet clothes for a week. And the water. You need water for coffee, for cooking, for washing. There is no tap. They're in a creek at the bottom of the hill. You have 2 wooden buckets. Water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. You're carrying 40 pounds of sloshing liquid up a muddy slope, slipping and sliding, straining your lower back. You do this 10 to 20 times a day. Your fingers cramp around the handles. Your arms feel like they're being pulled out of their sockets. And if you spill it, you have to go back down. And the grain. Those sacks aren't pillows. They are 50-pound bags of rough burlap that scrape the skin off your shoulder. You are hauling them from the wagon to the provision tent, back and forth, in the heat, in the rain, in the mud. You are a human forklift, but without the hydraulics. And then there is the guard duty. In the game, you might stand guard for a cutscene. In reality, you are standing still for 8 hours. You can't sit down. You can't sleep. You have to stare into the darkness, holding a heavy rifle, waiting for a threat that might never come. Your feet swell. Your back spasms. The mosquitoes eat you alive because you can't slap them without making noise. The boredom is physically painful. You start to pray for a shootout just to break the monotony. This isn't an adventure. It's manual labour. It's slavery to the elements. You're working harder than you have ever worked in your life, just to stay at zero, just to not die. There is no promotion. There is no weekend. There is only the sunrise, the axe and the bucket. But it's not just the animals. It's the silence. When the wind dies down, the silence of the frontier is so absolute it hurts your ears. It is a vacuum that sucks the thoughts right out of your head. You start to hear things that aren't there. A whisper in the trees, a footstep in the grass. Your brain, starved of sensory input, begins to hallucinate. This is the prairie madness you read about in history books. It wasn't a joke. It was a real psychological breakdown caused by isolation and sensory deprivation. Men went mad from the sound of the wind. They killed themselves because they couldn't stand the quiet. Women left alone in sod houses for weeks while their husbands were on cattle drives would sometimes lose their minds completely. They would start screaming and never stop. They would see demons in the shadows. The human mind is a social instrument. It requires feedback. Without it, it eats itself. And let's talk about the loneliness. It's not just being alone. It's the realization that you're completely, yet utterly cut off from humanity. If you break your leg, no one is coming. If you get sick, no one is coming. You're a single biological entity in a vast, indifferent ecosystem. The nearest human being might be 50 miles away. The nearest doctor might be 100. That knowledge sits in the back of your mind like a cold stone. It changes the way you move. It changes the way you think. You become paranoid. You become feral. You stop being a person and start being a prey animal. And the stars. In the game, they're a beautiful skybox. In reality, the Milky Way is so bright it casts a shadow. It is overwhelming. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel insignificant. You look up at the infinite void and realize that the universe does not care if you live or die. You're a speck of dust on a rock floating in nothingness. The existential dread isn't a philosophical concept. It is a physical weight on your chest. And let's talk about the darkness itself. Well, we mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating. When the moon is new, the darkness of the wilderness is absolute. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You can't see the ground. You are blind. And in that blindness, your imagination runs wild. Every snap of a twig is a cougar. Every rustle of leaves is an O'Driscoll. You are trapped in a sensory deprivation tank of your own fear. You sleep with your gun in your hand, your finger on the trigger, waiting for a monster that is probably just a raccoon. But the fear is real. The cortisol flooding your system is real. You are living in a state of constant high-alert panic. The horse, the symbol of freedom, the noble beast that will carry you across the plains. You walk over to your designated mount. In the game, you press a button to mount, and Arthur swings up into the saddle with the grace of a gymnast. You grab the saddle horn. The leather is cold and slippery. The horse shifts its weight, 1,000 pounds of muscle moving with a mind of its own. It snorts, a massive warm puff of air that smells like chewed grass and decay. You put your foot in the stirrup and heave. You don't swing up. You scramble. You grunt. You haul your body weight up the side of the animal, your knee banging against the saddle, your groin straining. You land in the seat with a heavy thud that makes the horse pin its ears back in annoyance. You're sitting on a leather pad strapped to a moving animal. It's not a car seat. It's hard. It spreads your legs wider than they are meant to go. As the horse starts to walk, you feel every step. The motion jars your spine. Your inner thighs start to chafe immediately against the rough denim of your jeans. You realize that riding into the sunset actually means sustaining friction burns on your sensitive areas while getting whiplash. But it's not just the physical pain of riding, it's the terrifying reality of the animal itself. A horse is not a motorcycle with a brain. It is a prey animal that is constantly looking for a reason to panic. In the game, your horse might get spooked by a snake. In reality, a horse will spook because a shadow moved wrong. It will spook because the wind blew a plastic bag. If plastic bags existed, it will spook because it felt like it. And when a horse panics, you are in the splash zone. It rears up, 1,200 pounds of terrified muscle going vertical. If you fall off the back, you break your spine. If you fall forward, you get trampled. If you stay on, you're now on a runaway train with no brakes. You're pulling on the reins, screaming, while trees blur past you at 30 miles an hour. One low branch, one gopher hole, and you are dead. Not respawn at checkpoint dead. Closed casket dead. And the maintenance. You don't just park a horse. You have to brush it. You have to pick its hooves, digging out impacted manure and rocks with a metal hook while the horse tries to lean on you. You have to feed it. You have to water it. If you don't, it dies. If you feed it the wrong thing, it gets colic and dies in agony while you watch, helpless, and you haven't even left the camp yet. You haven't faced a single enemy. You haven't drawn your gun. You're just trying to exist, and already your body is failing you. The world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is not a playground. It is a meat grinder, and you are the meat. But let's say you managed to get out of camp. You're in the saddle, and you're heading out for a mission. This is where the game lies to you the most. In Red Dead, you can gallop from Valentine to Rhodes in a few minutes. It's a scenic, exciting sprint. In reality, that distance is miles of rough, uneven terrain, and you can't gallop the whole way. Horses aren't motorcycles. If you push them too hard, they die. So you trot, you walk, for hours. Do you know what it feels like to sit on a trotting horse for 4 hours? It's like being in a paint mixer. Your internal organs are being rearranged. Your spine is being compressed with every step. And the chafing, let's just say that by noon the skin on your inner thighs will be raw and screaming. After a week of this, you'll have calluses in places you didn't know could callus. Every movement is discomfort. You'll spend your evenings walking bow-legged, praying for a day off that will never come. And the boredom. My God, the boredom. The game condenses travel, fills it with random encounters and dynamic music. Reality is just silence, wind, the sound of hooves. You aren't constantly fighting off O'Driscolls. You're mostly just fighting the urge to pass out from heatstroke or freeze to death, depending on the hour. You stare at the back of your horse's head. You stare at the horizon that never seems to get closer. You count the trees. You start to hallucinate from the monotony. And let's talk about that wind. It's not a gentle breeze. On the plains, the wind is a constant physical presence. It roars in your ears until you can't think. It drives dust into your eyes and mouth. It chaps your lips until they crack and bleed. It is a relentless, invisible force that wears you down, hour by hour. You can't escape it. There is no shelter. It is just you and the wind screaming at each other across the void. And then the weather turns. Because the weather isn't just a visual effect here. It's a predator. When it rains in the game, Arthur's coat gets shiny. When it rains in 1899, you get hypothermia. You're wearing wool and cotton. When they get wet, they stay wet. They get heavy. They suck the heat right out of your body. You'll be shivering so hard you can't hold the reins. Your teeth will chatter until they chip. And there is no drying off. You sleep wet. You wake up wet. You are perpetually damp, a breeding ground for mould and pneumonia. And the mud. We talked about the mud, but let's talk about the rain and the mud. When it rains for 3 days straight, the world turns into a slurry. You can't walk. You can't ride. You're trapped in a brown, freezing hellscape. The damp gets into your bones. It makes your old injuries ache. It makes your mood plummet. You're miserable, cold, and wet, and there is no roof to hide under. You just have to sit there and take it. And if the sun comes out, you're baking. You're sweating under layers of heavy fabric, dehydrating faster than you can drink from your warm, metallic-tasting canteen. The sun beats down on your hat, cooking your brain. You feel dizzy. You stop sweating, which is a bad sign. You're on the verge of heat stroke, and the only shade is miles away. And let's not forget the mud. The mud in this game is famous for its physics. In reality, it is a trap. It sucks the boots off your feet. It bogs down your horse until it's exhausted. It gets everywhere. In your food, in your gun, in your eyes. It is a relentless, sucking force that tries to pull you down into the earth and keep you there. The mud is just the beginning. The landscape itself is a weapon. In the game, you can ride your horse off a cliff and slide down safely. You can cross a raging river by tapping a button. In reality, the terrain is lethal. Let's talk about the rivers. The Dakota River looks beautiful. It's sparkling and blue. But if you try to cross it on horseback, you're gambling with your life. The current is stronger than it looks. The bottom is slippery rocks. If your horse slips, it goes down. You go down. You're now being tumbled downstream by thousands of pounds of freezing water. You're wearing heavy wool clothes and boots that fill with water, dragging you down like anchors. You can't swim. You drown in 3 feet of water, your lungs filling with silt, while your horse breaks its leg on a rock and screams on the bank. And the mountains, the grizzlies are majestic, but the air is thin. You are sea level soft. You try to climb a slope and your heart hammers against your ribs. You get dizzy. You get altitude sickness. And the cold up there, it's not just chilly, it's instant frostbite. Your fingers turn white, then black. Your nose goes numb. You lose toes inside your boots and don't even know it until you take them off and they stay in the sock. And then you have to camp. In the game you hold a button and a tent magically appears with a fire. In reality, setting up camp is a miserable hour-long ordeal. You have to find flat ground, which doesn't exist. You have to clear the rocks. You have to pitch a canvas tent that weighs 50 pounds and smells like mildew. You have to find dry wood, which, if it's raining, is impossible. Have you ever tried to start a fire with wet wood in the wind? It is an exercise in futility and rage. You're shivering, your hands are numb, and you're blowing on a tiny spark that refuses to catch. You burn your fingers, you curse God, and when you finally get a fire going, it smokes. It doesn't crackle warmly. It billows thick white smoke that blinds you and makes you cough until you retch. And then you have to sleep on the ground. We mentioned this before, but let's really dwell on it. The ground is not flat. It is lumpy. It sucks the heat out of you. Roots dig into your kidneys, rocks bruise your hip bones. You toss and turn, wrapping yourself in a damp blanket that smells like horse sweat, listening to the wind howl, knowing that the only thing separating you from the elements is a thin sheet of canvas. And let's talk about the boots. In the game, they are a fashion statement. In reality, they are a prison for your feet. You wear them for 16 hours a day. Your feet swell in the heat. The leather shrinks in the rain. When you finally pry them off at night, if you can pry them off, the smell is enough to make you gag. Your socks are stiff with sweat and dirt. Your toes are white and wrinkled. You have blisters on your heels the size of quarters. The relief of taking them off is the best part of your day, and that is a sad commentary on your life. And the insects. Oh, the insects. We mentioned them at camp, but on the trail they are a plague. Horseflies the size of your thumb that take chunks out of your skin. Gnats that swarm your eyes and nose, drowning you in a cloud of buzzing misery. You can't swat them away because your hands are busy with the reins. You just have to let them eat you. And it's not just the predators you have to worry about, it's the scavengers. In the game, a raccoon is a cute critter you study. In reality, raccoons, possums and rats are a constant nightmare. They raid your food stores. They chew through your saddlebags. They carry disease. You wake up to find your only bag of flour torn open and covered in rat droppings. You have to throw it out. Now you have no food for 3 days. These animals aren't just background noise. They are active competitors for your resources. And let's talk about the horse again. It's not just a vehicle. It's a giant, skittish animal with a brain the size of a walnut. In the game, your horse might buck you if it sees a gator. In reality, a horse will buck you because a leaf blew across the trail. It will trip over a root and roll on top of you, crushing your pelvis instantly. It will bite you. It will step on your foot with 1,000 pounds of pressure, shattering your toes inside your boot. You aren't a horse whisperer. You're a liability. And the smell. A horse isn't a motorcycle. It's a biological machine that produces massive amounts of heat, sweat and manure. After a day of riding, the smell of wet horsehair and ammonia is overpowering. It clings to your clothes. It clings to your skin. You can taste it in your food. You're living in a cloud of animal musk that never goes away. And the flies, they love it. They swarm the horse, and they swarm you. You are constantly waving your hand in front of your face, trying to keep them out of your eyes. But it's a losing battle. But let's assume you survive the ride. You reach your destination, and now the guns come out. This is the part you've been waiting for, right? The shootout, the deadeye, the glory. Here is the truth. You will freeze. First, let's talk about the guns themselves. In the game, they are precision instruments. In reality, a 19th century revolver is a heavy, oily, mechanical brick. It misfires. It jams. The trigger pull is heavy enough to throw off your aim if you have weak wrists, which you do. And the reloading, you aren't speed loading 6 bullets in a second. You're fumbling with individual cartridges, your hands shaking with adrenaline, dropping bullets in the mud while someone is actively trying to murder you. And let's talk about the weight. In the game, Arthur carries an arsenal in his satchel. In reality, everything you own has weight. A Henry repeater weighs 9 pounds. A Cattleman revolver weighs 2.5 pounds. A box of ammo weighs 5 pounds. Your coat weighs 10 pounds. Your boots weigh 4 pounds. You're carrying 50-60 pounds of gear on your body at all times. Try walking 10 miles with the 60-pound rucksack. Your knees ache. Your feet blister. Your shoulders scream. You aren't sprinting through the woods. You're trudging. You're a pack mule with a gun. And every ounce of that weight burns calories you can't afford to lose, and the maintenance. A gun in 1899 isn't like a modern Glock that can shoot thousands of rounds without cleaning. It uses black powder. Black powder is dirty. It fouls the barrel with thick corrosive soot after just a few shots. If you don't clean it constantly, the cylinder binds, the action freezes, you pull the trigger and nothing happens. You're dead because you didn't spend an hour scrubbing your gun with a rag and oil last night. And the smell. Black powder smells like rotten eggs and hellfire. When you fire a volley, you are enveloped in a cloud of sulphur that burns your eyes and throat. You can't breathe. You can't see. You're coughing and choking in a fog of war that is literal, not metaphorical. And the taste? It coats your tongue. It tastes like copper and ash. You will be spitting black phlegm for hours after a gunfight. It gets in your hair. It gets in your clothes. You smell like death. And when a real gun goes off without ear protection, it is deafening. It's not a pop. It's a concussive blast that rattles your teeth. In a canyon or a forest, that sound is amplified. You won't hear cool combat music. You'll hear a high-pitched ringing in your ears that drowns out everything else. You will be instantly, permanently deafened. You won't know where the shots are coming from. The air will fill with black powder smoke, thick, acrid and blinding. You won't be able to see the enemy. You'll just see flashes of light and feel the terrifying snap of bullets breaking the air inches from your head. And if you get hit, there is no health tonic. There is no health core that regenerates if you eat a can of beans. A bullet from a cattleman revolver is a heavy slug of lead moving at supersonic speeds. It doesn't just make a neat little hole, it shatters bone, it tears through muscle, it liquefies organs. If you get shot in the gut, you don't just lose a chunk of your health bar, you fall to the ground, screaming in agony as your body goes into shock. Let's be specific. If a bullet hits your femur, your leg doesn't just break, it explodes. Sharp shards of your own bone become shrapnel, tearing through your femoral artery. You will bleed out in roughly 3 minutes. If it hits your lung, you don't just cough. You drown in your own blood, gasping for air that won't come. If it hits your gut, the contents of your intestines spill into your abdominal cavity. Peritonitis sets in. You will die of infection, but it will take days. Days of fever, delirium and agony so intense you will beg for death. And the aftermath. The game fades to black, or you respawn. In reality, the aftermath of a gunfight is a scene of absolute horror. The smell of blood, metallic and sweet, mixes with the sulphur and the mud. The screams of the dying don't stop when the shooting stops. They go on for hours. You have to listen to men crying for their mothers, begging for water, bargaining with God. You have to watch the light go out of their eyes. You have to smell their bowels releasing as they die. And the looting. In the game, you hold a button to loot a body. Arthur pats them down and finds a gold watch. In reality, looting a corpse is a grotesque, intimate act. The body is heavy. It's warm. It's covered in blood and filth. You have to roll it over. You have to dig through pockets that are sticky with gore. You have to look at the face of the man you just killed while you steal his pocket change. The guilt isn't a meter that goes down. It's a stain on your soul that never washes out. And you are shaking. You are vomiting. You are in shock. You have just killed a human being. It's not a stat on a screen. It's a person with a life, a family, a history, and you ended it. The psychological weight of that will crush you. You will never sleep soundly again. You will see their faces every time you close your eyes. This is what they called soldier's heart back then. Today we call it PTSD, and there is no therapist in Valentine to help you process it. There is only the bottle, and there is no respawn. There is no retry checkpoint. There is just the cold, hard end of your story. You will die in the mud, crying for a mother who hasn't been born yet, while flies, those same flies from the camp, land on your open eyes. But maybe you don't get shot. Maybe you just have to survive the wild. Nature in 1899 isn't a backdrop. It's a hostile entity. In the game, a bear. Attack is a quick-time event. You mash a button and stab it. In reality, a grizzly bear is an 800-pound tank of muscle and rage. It moves faster than a racehorse. If it decides it wants you, you are dead before you can even draw your weapon. It won't be a cinematic struggle. It will be a massacre. It will eat you while you're still alive. And it's not just the big predators. It's the wolves that hunt in packs, flanking you while you're distracted. It's the cougar you never hear coming until its teeth are in your neck. It's the rattlesnake hiding in the brush where you step to take a leak. And then there are the killers you can't shoot. The water you drank from that clear-looking stream. It's full of giardia. You'll be dead from dehydration caused by dysentery in 3 days. That scratch you got from a rusty nail on a fence. Tetanus. Your jaw will lock shut and you'll die in agonizing spasms. The mosquito that bit you while you were sleeping. Malaria. The cough you picked up from a stranger in Valentine. Tuberculosis. You are fighting a war on 1,000 fronts and you have no armor. You have no medicine. You have no hope. But let's say you survive the wild. You make it to civilization. You ride into Valentine or Rhodes. You think you're safe. Think again. The people of 1899 are not NPCs waiting to give you a quest. They are hardened, suspicious, and dangerous. You walk into a saloon. In the game, you can greet everyone, maybe play a hand of poker. In reality, you are a stranger. You talk differently. You walk differently. You have a full set of teeth and skin that hasn't been leathery from 40 years of sun exposure. You stick out like a sore thumb. And in the West, standing out gets you killed. You order a drink. It's not a smooth whiskey. It's rot gut. Raw alcohol flavoured with chewing tobacco or molasses to hide the taste. It burns your throat, makes your eyes water, and might actually make you go blind if the distiller didn't know what he was doing. You cough, and the whole bar goes silent. Every pair of eyes is on you. These aren't friendly eyes. These are men who've killed for less than a pair of boots. And God help you if you break the law. In reality, the law is a noose. There is no wanted system that resets. If you steal a horse, you don't get a fine. You get hanged. If you cheat at cards, you get shot. If you look at the wrong person the wrong way, you get beaten into a coma, and no one calls an ambulance because ambulances don't exist. There is no due process. There is no lawyer to argue your case. There is just a rope and a tree, or a shallow grave outside of town. And that's if you're lucky enough to be a white man. If you are a woman, if you are a person of colour, the difficulty curve isn't just steep, it's a vertical wall. The racism and sexism of 1899 aren't just background flavour text. They are systemic, brutal, and omnipresent. You wouldn't just be fighting the elements. You'd be fighting a society that fundamentally does not view you as a person. But wait, you say, I can take care of myself. I have a health cure. Let's talk about medicine in 1899. This isn't healthcare, it's a horror movie. If you get sick, and you will get sick, the doctor isn't going to give you a Z-pack. He's going to give you heroin, or cocaine, or mercury. Medicine back then was basically guesswork and poison. Got a headache? Here's some leeches to suck the bad blood out of your face. Got a toothache? We'll pull it out with rusty pliers and give you whiskey for the pain. Got a cough? Here's a syrup made of morphine and chloroform that will knock you out for 3 days. And God help you if you need surgery. There is no anaesthesia. There is no sterile operating room. There is a wooden table in the back of a saloon, covered in the blood of the last 3 guys who died on it. The doctor is likely drunk. He has to be to do his job. He doesn't wash his hands between patients. He wipes his sore on his apron. And let's talk about the doctor himself. In the game, the doctor in Valentine is a respectable professional. In reality, medical licensing in the West was loose. Many doctors were failed barbers, butchers, or con men who bought a diploma by mail order. They didn't know anatomy. They didn't know germ theory. Their solution to everything was bleeding, blistering, or amputation. You aren't visiting a specialist. You're visiting a man who was shoeing horses an hour ago and is now digging a bullet out of your liver with unwashed fingers. And the saw? Let's talk about the saw. If you take a bullet in the arm or leg and the bone shatters, there is no reconstruction. There is only amputation. You will be held down by 4 strong men. You will bite on a leather strap, and you will feel the cold steel of the saw bite into your flesh. You will feel it grate against your bone. You will hear the sound, a wet, grinding crunch that vibrates through your entire skeleton. You will scream until your vocal cords tear, and then you will pass out from the pain. And when you wake up, if you wake up, you will have a stump wrapped in dirty bandages. And then the real battle begins. The infection. Gangrene smells like rotting meat. It turns your skin black and bubbly. It creeps up your limb, inch by inch, poisoning your blood. The only cure is to cut higher, and higher, until there is nothing left to cut. But let's say you survive the infection. You aren't back on your horse the next day. You're in bed for months. You are weak. You are atrophied. You have bed sores that rot your flesh down to the bone because you can't move. And the pain, it never goes away. So you keep taking the medicine, the morphine, the laudanum. And soon you aren't just a cripple. You're a junkie. You're shaking, sweating, stealing from your friends to get your next fix. The West was full of men like this. Veterans of the Civil War, survivors of accidents, who were hollowed out by addiction long before they died. But maybe you don't need surgery. Maybe you just need medicine. You go to the general store, you see shelves lined with colourful bottles, snake oil, miracle tonic, bitters. In the game, these restore your health. In reality, they are poison. Most patent medicines in 1899 were a cocktail of alcohol, opium, cocaine, and heavy metals. They didn't cure anything. They just made you too high to care that you were dying. Some contained mercury, which would slowly drive you insane. Some contained arsenic. You are paying your hard-earned money to poison yourself. And let's revisit the dentist. We touched on it earlier, but the horror deserves a second look. Dental hygiene in 1899 was non-existent. Sugar was becoming cheap, but toothbrushes were not. Everyone had rotten teeth. The smell of a person's breath could knock you over from 5 feet away, And when a tooth had to come out, it wasn't a sterile procedure, it was a public spectacle. Travelling dentists would pull teeth in the town square, often with a drummer playing loudly to drown out the screams. They would break the jaw. They would leave roots behind. They would spread syphilis from patient to patient because they never clean their tools. But maybe you avoid the bullet. Maybe you just catch a bug. The microscopic world of 1899 is more dangerous than any O'Driscoll. Tuberculosis isn't just a plot point for Arthur. It's the leading cause of death. It eats your lungs from the inside out. You drown in your own fluids, coughing up pieces of your own tissue. Cholera turns your body into a fountain of fluids until you are a husk. Typhus, spread by the lice we mentioned earlier, cooks your brain with fever. Smallpox covers you in painful, pus-filled blisters that leave you scarred for life, if you survive. And there are no antibiotics. A simple scratch from a rose bush can kill you. A blister on your heel can turn septic. You're walking through a minefield of bacteria, and you are barefoot, so you flee back to the wilderness. You decide the town is too dangerous. You'll take your chances with the bears. But before you go, let's talk about the cage you are trying to escape, the social and economic reality of 1899. Because even if you survive the diseases and the bullets, the world itself is designed to crush you. In Red Dead, money is easy. You loot a few bodies, sell a gold bar, and you're rich. You can buy the best guns, the best clothes, the best horses. In reality, the economy of the frontier was a grinding machine of poverty. Most people didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. A cowboy's wage was around $25 to $40 a month. That sounds quaint until you realise that a good pair of boots cost 15 days. A saddle cost 30. You're working for months just to afford the tools of your trade. You are perpetually in debt to the company store, to the ranch owner, to the bank. You aren't free. You are an indentured servant with a hat. And the debt. It wasn't just a number on a ledger, it was a chain. If you owed money, you couldn't leave. You were legally bound to work until it was paid off. And the interest rates, they were predatory. 50%, 100%. You could work for 10 years and owe more than when you started. This is the reality of the sharecropper system that replaced slavery in the South, and it extended to the West in the form of ranch hands who were little more than serfs. And let's talk about the women. The game gives us Sadie Adler, a badass gunslinger who takes no crap. And while women like that existed, Calamity Jane, Belle Starr, they were the exception, not the rule. For the vast majority of women on the frontier, life was a relentless struggle against a society that viewed them as property. If you were a woman alone, your options were terrifyingly limited. You could be a school teacher, earning a pittance and likely being fired if you got married. You could be a domestic servant working 16 hours a day for room and board. Or you could turn to the life. Prostitution was the backbone of the frontier economy, but it wasn't the glamorous heart of gold trope we see in movies. It was brutal, dangerous, and often short. Women were trafficked, beaten, and discarded. They died of syphilis, of drug overdoses, of violence at the hands of drunk customers. There was no HR department. There was no police protection. You were on your own. And for the respectable women, the wives and mothers, their life was a different kind of hard. Childbirth was the leading cause of death for women. Imagine giving birth in a sod house with a dirt floor, with no doctor, no pain relief, and a high chance of hemorrhage. Imagine burying half your children before they turn 5 because of dysentery or scarlet fever. The grief alone would be enough to break a modern person. And let's talk about the children who did survive. In the game, Jack Marston is a cute kid who reads books and fishes. In reality, childhood didn't exist in 1899. If you were 5 years old, you were working. You were feeding chickens, hauling water, picking crops. By 10, you were doing the work of a man. There was no school for most frontier kids. There were no toys. There was just work, and the mortality rate, it was staggering. 1 in 5 children died before their first birthday. 1 in 3 didn't make it to adulthood. Disease, accidents, malnutrition. Death was a constant companion in the nursery. You wouldn't just be fighting for your own survival. You'd be watching your children die, helpless to save them. And the law, in the game, the law is a mechanic. You commit a crime. You get a bounty. You pay it off at the post office, and the sheriff waves at you the next day. It's a transaction. You can murder a town and then pay a fine and walk away. In reality, the law is a noose. There is no wanted system that resets. If you steal a horse, you don't get a fine, you get hanged. Horse theft was a capital offence because a horse was a man's livelihood. Stealing it was sentencing him to death. So they strung you up from the nearest tree without a trial. If you cheat at cards, you get shot. If you look at the wrong person the wrong way, you get beaten into a coma, and no one calls an ambulance because ambulances don't exist. There is no due process. There is no lawyer to argue your case. There is just a rope and a tree, or a shallow grave outside of town. The law was often just the guy with the biggest gun and the most friends. It was arbitrary, brutal, and final. And let's talk about the saloon. In the game, it's a place to play poker and get a haircut. In reality, a frontier saloon was a sensory assault. The smell would knock you down. It smelled of stale beer, unwashed bodies, sawdust, spittoons filled with tobacco juice, and vomit. The floor was sticky. The air was thick with smoke. And the violence. It wasn't a cool bar fight where you throw someone through a window. It was a knife in the gut. It was a bottle to the back of the head. It was sudden, ugly, and often fatal. You didn't go there to socialise. You went there to get drunk enough to forget you were alive. And that's if you're lucky enough to be a white man. If you are a woman, the difficulty curve isn't just steep, it's a vertical wall. You have no rights. You cannot vote. You cannot own property in many places. You're considered the property of your father or your husband. If you're alone on the frontier, you are viewed as either a prostitute or a victim in waiting. The chivalry of the West is a myth invented by Hollywood. The reality was a patriarchy so absolute that your very existence was defined by the men around you. If you are a person of colour, the world is not just indifferent. It is actively trying to kill you. The racism of 1899 isn't just background flavour text. It is systemic, brutal, and omnipresent. You wouldn't just be fighting the elements. You'd be fighting a society that fundamentally does not view you as a person. Sundown towns were real. Lynchings were common. The law didn't protect you. The law hunted you. You could be killed for walking on the wrong side of the street, for looking a white man in the eye, for existing. The game touches on this with characters like Lenny and Charles, but it shields the player from the true visceral horror of it. In reality, you wouldn't be riding into roads to buy supplies. You'd be running for your life. And let's be specific about sundown towns. These weren't just places where people were rude. These were municipalities that had signs at the city limits reading here, "Don't let the sun set on you here." If you were black and you were found in town after dark, you weren't just arrested. You were beaten. You were tortured. You were killed. This wasn't a rare occurrence. It was standard practice in hundreds of towns across the West. The freedom of the frontier was strictly for white men. For everyone else, it was a police state. And let's talk about the freedom of the outlaw life. In the game, Dutch's gang is a family. They have parties. They sing songs. In reality, outlaw gangs were desperate, paranoid groups of violent men living in squalor. They didn't trust each other. They would sell each other out for a pardon or a bottle of whiskey. There was no honour among thieves. There was only fear. You slept with one eye open, not because of the Pinkertons, but because the guy sleeping next to you might decide your share of the take looks better in his pocket. You are trapped. You are trapped by your biology, by the elements, by the economy, and by the society. There is no escape. The freedom of the West was a marketing slogan to get people to move into a meat grinder. And then the sun goes down. In the game, night is beautiful. It's a cool blue filter over the world. The moon is always full enough to see by. You can ride through the forest at midnight and spot a deer 100 yards away. The music swells, mysterious and alluring. In reality, night in the wilderness is a suffocating blanket of black. There is no light pollution. There are no streetlights reflecting off the clouds. When the sun vanishes, the world simply disappears. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You can't see the ground beneath your feet. You are blind. And with the blindness comes the fear. You are a modern human. You are used to being at the top of the food chain. But in the dark, in 1899, you are not the predator. You are the prey. Every sound is amplified. The snap of a twig sounds like a gunshot. The rustle of leaves sounds like footsteps. The howl of a coyote isn't atmospheric. It's a dinner bell, and you are the meal. But it's not just the animals, it's the silence. When the wind dies down, the silence of the frontier is so absolute it hurts your ears. It is a vacuum that sucks the thoughts right out of your head. You start to hear things that aren't there. A whisper in the trees, a footstep in the grass. Your brain, starved of sensory input, begins to hallucinate. This is the prairie madness you read about in history books. It wasn't a joke. It was a real psychological breakdown caused by isolation and sensory deprivation. Men went mad from the sound of the wind. They killed themselves because they couldn't stand the quiet. You lie in your tent, shivering in the damp cold, clutching a gun you don't know how to use, listening to the breathing of the forest. Your mind starts to play tricks on you. Was that a shadow moving? Was that a voice? The isolation begins to claw at your sanity. You realize how small you are. You realize how fragile you are. The silence isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It presses down on you, filling your mind with every primal fear your ancestors spent 1,000,000 years trying to breed out of you. But the fear isn't the worst part. The worst part is the aimlessness. In the game, you have a purpose. You have a yellow marker on the map. You have a mission. Go to Valentine. Rob the train. Save John. Your life has structure. It has narrative momentum. You're the protagonist of a story that is being written for you. In reality, there is no yellow marker. There is no mission. There is just survival. You wake up. You find food. You find water. You try not to die. You go to sleep. Repeat until death. There is no chapter 6. There is no redemption arc. There is just the relentless, grinding struggle to keep your biological machine running for one more day. This existential dread is something the game can't simulate. It can't simulate the feeling of waking up on a Tuesday in the middle of nowhere, with no money, no prospects, and no reason to get out of bed other than the fact that your stomach hurts. You aren't building a legacy. You aren't fighting for a cause. You're just an animal trying to eat. And this brings us to the nostalgia trap. We love Red Dead Redemption 2 because it sells us a fantasy of a simpler time. We look at the sunsets and the horses and think, man, I wish I lived back then. We hate our office jobs. We hate our commute. We hate the noise and the stress of modern life. We crave the freedom of the outlaw, but that freedom is an illusion. We're confusing simplicity with misery. Yes, life was simpler, but it was also shorter, harder, and infinitely more painful. We have forgotten what it feels like to be truly hungry. We have forgotten what it feels like to be truly cold. We have forgotten what it feels like to bury a child because the water was dirty. We are tourists in history. We visit 1899 through a 4K screen, sitting in an air-conditioned room, drinking a latte. We take the aesthetics, the hats, the revolvers, the rugged individualism, and we leave behind the dysentery, the racism, and the starvation. We want the cowboy fantasy without the cowboy reality. You think about your friends, your family. They are a universe away. You will likely never see them again. You're alone in a way that modern human can scarcely comprehend. There is no text message to send. There is no 911 to call. If you scream, no one will hear you. If you die, no one will find you. You will simply cease to exist, swallowed by the vast, indifferent landscape. You try to sleep, but the ground is hard, the air is freezing, and your stomach is cramping from the bad water and the lack of food. You think about your bed at home. You think about your refrigerator. You think about the simple miracle of hot running water. You think about the safety of a locked door. But before we end this, let's make it real. Let's walk through your day. Not a montage, not a highlight reel. A real, hour-by-hour breakdown of your life in 1899. 5:00 a.m. You wake up. You don't wake up to an alarm clock. You wake up because the cold has seeped through your bones. Your bladder is full, but you don't want to leave the warmth of your blankets. You hold it until it hurts. Finally you crawl out. The air is freezing. You stumble to the latrine, a hole in the ground that smells of death. You do your business while shivering uncontrollably, trying to ignore the flies that are already awake. 6 a.m. Chores. You chop wood for an hour. Your hands are blistered. Your back screams. You haven't eaten yet. You are burning calories you don't have. You haul water. You feed the horses. You're exhausted, and the sun is barely up. 7 a.m. Breakfast. It's the same thing you ate yesterday. Hardtack, salted pork, coffee that tastes like mud. You eat it quickly, not because it's good, but because you need the fuel. Your teeth ache from the hard bread. Your gums bleed. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The ride. You're in the saddle. The sun comes up, and the freezing cold turns to baking heat. You sweat. The sweat mixes with the dirt on your skin to form a gritty paste. The horseflies find you. They bite your neck, your hands, your face. You can't stop riding. You are bored. You are thirsty. You are in pain. 12 p.m. Lunch. You stop by a creek. You eat a can of beans, cold. You drink from the creek, hoping you aren't swallowing a parasite. You rest for 10 minutes, but the ants find you. You get back on the horse. 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. The hunt. Hours of tracking. A missed shot. A wasted bullet. You return empty-handed, knowing you'll be eating beans again tonight. 6 p.m. The return. You ride back to camp. You're defeated. You are hungry. The sun goes down. and the temperature drops 20 degrees in an hour. You're shivering again. 7 p.m. Dinner. Pearson has made stew. It's watery. It has chunks of gristle in it. You eat it greedily. You talk to the others, but everyone is tired. Everyone is smelly. There is no music. There is no party. Just the sound of chewing and coughing. 8 p.m. The maintenance. You clean your gun. You clean your horse. You try to mend a tear in your shirt by the light of the fire, pricking your finger with a needle. You're too tired to think. You try to read a book, but the words swim on the page. Your eyes are heavy, burning from the smoke of the fire. You're physically depleted in a way that a gym workout can never replicate. Your muscles have been under tension for 14 hours. Your joints are inflamed. You're an old man at 25. 9 p.m. The night. You crawl into your tent. The ground is hard. The noises of the forest start. You lie there, staring at the canvas, thinking about your life. You think about the girl you left back east. You think about the bank you robbed. You think about the man you killed. The guilt comes. The fear comes. 12 a.m. The nightmares. You finally fall asleep, but it's not restful. You dream of wolves. You dream of hanging. You wake up screaming, drenched in cold sweat. You check your gun. You try to go back to sleep. Repeat. Every single day. This is the reality. It is a grind. It is a slow, painful attrition of your body and your soul. There is no glory in it. There is only endurance. And that is when the final realization hits you. You're not Arthur Morgan. You're not John Marston. You're not a rugged outlaw with a heart of gold and dead eye that never misses. You're a soft, domesticated creature of the 21st century. You're a product of comfort. You need antibiotics. You need climate control. You need safety. You need society. The world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masterpiece of art, a beautiful, tragic, immersive experience. But it is a fantasy. It is a sanitized, romanticized version of a brutal, unforgiving reality. It lets you play tourist in a time of monsters without ever letting the monsters touch you. And perhaps that is why we love it. We love it because it lets us touch the edge of the abyss without falling in. We can feel the cold without freezing. We can feel the hunger without starving. We can feel the fear without dying. It is a safe space to explore our primal past, a digital museum of human suffering that we can visit and leave whenever we want. But do not mistake the museum for the world. Do not mistake the avatar for the man. If you were truly dropped into that world, you wouldn't be robbing trains. You wouldn't be getting into bar fights. You wouldn't be riding into the sunset. You would be cold. You would be hungry. You would be terrified. And you would be dead before the sun came up. So, the next time you boot up the game, the next time you guide Arthur through the snow or the swamp, take a moment to appreciate the controller in your hand. Appreciate the warmth of your room. Appreciate the fact that your biggest problem today is a slow internet connection or a boring meeting. Appreciate the fact that if you get a toothache, you can go to a dentist who won't kill you. Appreciate the fact that your water comes from a tap and not a muddy creek. Appreciate the fact that you are alive, warm, and safe. Because you wouldn't last a day in 1899. And honestly, neither would I. But we can visit, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough.